I need to find her. Tell me, where is Adana?
For 2 years, the neighbors in the small Oigbo compound had grown used to the sounds from number 4, the sounds of Emeka and his wife, Adana. Their life had a rhythm, a dark song that everyone knew the tune to. During the day, Emeka was a different man. He was Emeka the trader, who sold plumbing materials at the Mile 3 market. He would greet everyone in the morning. "Mama Nkechi, morning-o," he would shout to the woman in number 2, his voice loud and friendly. "Papa Chidi, we thank God for today," he would say to the old man who sat outside number 1. He smiled a lot. His teeth were white and even. He looked like a good man, a man who took care of his wife. His wife, Adana, was a mystery. She was beautiful, the way a picture is beautiful. Her skin was the color of smooth, dark chocolate. Her eyes were large, but they were always looking down or away. She never stopped to gossip with the women at the water tap. When they greeted her, she would answer with a small, shy voice, "Good morning," and hurry back inside. She was like a shadow that lived with Emeka, a beautiful, silent shadow. But at night, the music changed. It would start slow. Emeka would come back from the market. The heavy metal gate of the compound would scrape open and slam shut. His footsteps would be heavy on the concrete. The door to number 4 would open and close. For about an hour, there would be quiet. Then his voice would start, low at first, a rumbling sound like distant thunder. The neighbors could not hear the words, but they could hear the anger in the sound. Then Adana's voice would join, soft and pleading, a tiny bird trying to calm a storm. The storm would always break. The thunder of Emeka's voice would get louder. Then came the other sounds, a slap, sharp and loud like a firecracker. The sound of something falling, a chair maybe, a dull thud, a sound that made the neighbors wince and turn up the volume on their own televisions. Sometimes Adana would cry out, just once, a short, sharp sound of pain. After that, there would only be the sound of Emeka's angry words, and then quiet. The next morning, Adana would come out to sweep the front of their door. She would wear a scarf tied low on her head. Sometimes she would wear sunglasses, even when the sun was not bright. If you looked closely, you could see the corner of a swollen lip or a small bruise on her arm, but no one looked too closely. It was not their business. In this compound, everyone learned to lock their doors, face their front, and mind their own business. Mama Ntechi in number 2 tried once. She was fetching water at the tap one morning. When Adana came out, Adana had a long scratch on her cheek, thin and red. "My daughter, Adana, this thing your husband is doing, it is not good-o. You are not his punching bag." Adana did not look at her. She just stared at the running water filling her bucket. "Thank you, Mama," she whispered. Her voice was flat, with no feeling. He did not mean to. He was angry. Angry? Is that why he must beat you like a thief? There is no anger that can excuse this thing. You should talk to someone, your people, your family. Adana turned off the tap and lifted her bucket. For the first time, she looked directly into Mama Nkechi's eyes. Her own eyes were dark and empty, like a deep well with no water. "I have no one, Mama. There is only Emeka." Then she turned and walked away, her back straight, her steps careful. Mama Nkechi never tried to talk to her again. What could she do? She was just a neighbor. It was a husband and wife matter. The beatings got worse over time. The sounds became louder, more violent. One night, about a week before she vanished, the whole compound was woken up by the sound of breaking glass. It was followed by a long, terrible scream from Adana. It was not her usual short cry of pain. This was a scream of pure terror. Lights came on in the other flats. People opened their doors a little, peering out into the dark yard. Papa Chidi from number 1, who was old and brave, shouted from his window, Emeka, what is going on there? Do you want to kill her? The noise inside number 4 stopped. A heavy silence fell over the compound. Everyone stood by their doors, listening, holding their breath. For about a few minutes, Emeka's voice came through his window, trying to sound calm. It is nothing, Papa Chidi. My wife just saw a big rat. Everything is fine. Sorry for the disturbance. No one believed him. A rat? That scream was not because of a rat. But what could they do? They were not the police. So one by one, the lights went off. The doors closed. Everyone went back to bed, but nobody really slept. They just lay there, listening to the silence from number 4, a silence that felt more frightening than the noise. The next morning, no one saw Adana at all. This was not unusual. After a bad night, she would often stay inside for a day or two. Emeka came out in the morning, looking tired. He had a small cut on his hand. When Mama Nkechi saw it, he just smiled and said he had an accident at his shop. He greeted everyone as usual and went to the market. He acted as if nothing had happened. For the next 2 days, there was no sign of Adana. On the 3rd day, a foul smell started to come from number 4. It was a sweet, rotten smell, the kind of smell you never forget. The neighbors started to whisper, Did he finally do it? Mama Nkechi asked her husband, her voice low. His husband just shook his head. Don't say such a thing. It is not our business. But it was becoming their business. The smell was getting stronger. It clung to the air, heavy and thick. By the 5th day, the flies started to gather around the windows of number 4. Big green flies. The neighbors could not ignore it anymore. Papa Chidi, as the oldest man in the compound, decided to act. He gathered 2 other men and they went to knock on Emeka's door in the evening, just after he came back from the market. Emeka opened the door with his usual big smile. Papa Chidi, good evening. I hope there is no problem. The smell that came out of the house was overwhelming. It was the smell of decay. Papa Chidi covered his nose with his handkerchief. Emeka, my son, we are worried. We have not seen your wife for almost a week. And this smell, what is the smell in your house? Emeka's smile did not disappear, but it changed. It became tight and strange. My wife? Adana? She traveled. She went to her village to see her sick mother. She left 3 days ago. 3 days ago? Another of the men asked. But the smell started before then. Emeka laughed. It was a short, sharp sound that was not happy. The smell. I know. It is because of a rat. A very big rat died under the floorboards. I have been trying to find it. I even bought rat poison. That is what you are smelling. The dead rat and the poison. The men looked at each other. His story sounded weak. A rat but smelled this bad? We want to see inside, Emeka. We are your neighbors. We are concerned. For a second, Emeka's eyes flashed with anger. It was the same anger they heard in his voice at night. His friendly mask dropped. They saw the real Emeka, the man who beat his wife. But just as quickly, the smile came back. Of course, Papa. Please come in. But I must warn you, the smell is very bad. He opened the door wider and let them in. The small living room was neat. Too neat. The floor was shining, recently mopped. There was a strong smell of bleach in the air, trying hard to fight the smell of decay. The men looked around. There was a new rug on the floor. It was a cheap, ugly rug that did not match the rest of the furniture. As you can see, everything is fine, Emeka said, spreading his hands. My wife is in the village. I'm just here trying to find this stupid rat. Papa Chidi walked towards the bedroom door. And in here? Emeka said quickly, moving to block his way. Just the bedroom. It's messy. Please don't mind it. But Papa Chidi was not listening. He pushed past Emeka and opened the bedroom door. The smell of death was even stronger inside. The room was also very clean. The bed was made perfectly. But on the wall, near the bed, they saw it. A large dark stain on the paint. Someone had tried to wash it off, but you could still see the dark color that had soaked into the wall. And the new rug in the living room, it was exactly the right size to cover a stain on the floor. Papa Chidi turned and looked at Emeka. The other two men stood behind him, their faces hard. Emeka was not smiling anymore. His face was a mask of cold fury. "Emeka," Papa Chidi said, his voice low and dangerous, "where is your wife?" Emeka stared at him, his chest rising and falling quickly. He looked like a cornered animal. For a long moment, nobody said anything. The only sound was the buzzing of the green flies outside the window. Then that night happened, the last night of the sounds from number 4. Papa Chidi and the men had left without getting a real answer. They told Emeka they would be back in the morning with the police if Adana didn't show up. They were serious. The whole compound knew it. Everyone was tense, waiting for the morning. Around midnight, a strange sound started from Emeka's flat. It was not the sound of shouting or beating. It was a scraping sound. A heavy, dragging sound. Scrape, drag. Scrape, drag. It went on for about an hour. It sounded like someone was dragging a heavy sack of rice across the concrete floor. Mama Nkechi, who was too scared to sleep, peeked through a small hole in her curtain. She could see a faint light from Emeka's windows. The scraping sound continued, moving from the bedroom to the living room, then towards the back door. She heard the back door creak open. The sound moved outside, into the small backyard that was full of weeds. She could not see what was happening, but she could hear. She heard the sound of digging, a shovel hitting the soft, damp earth. Dig, thump, dig, thump. The sound of digging went on and on for what felt like hours. It was a slow, steady rhythm. The sound of someone working very hard at a terrible job. Mama Nkechi's heart was beating so fast she thought it would break her ribs. She wanted to scream. She wanted to call the police, but she was paralyzed by fear. What was he burying in the backyard at this time of night? It could only be one thing. He had killed her. He had killed Adana, and now he was burying her body just a few feet from their own homes. The digging stopped around 3 a.m. Then there was a heavy thud, the sound of something heavy being dropped into a hole. It was followed by the sound of the shovel again, but faster this time as he filled the hole. Pat, pat, pat. When it was all over, a new kind of silence fell. It was the silence of a secret buried in the earth. Mama Nkechi stayed by her window, shaking until the first light of morning started to break. She saw Emeka come out of his back door. He was covered in mud. He looked exhausted, but his face had a strange look of relief. He used the outside tap to wash his hands and feet, scrubbing them carefully. Then he went back inside. An hour later, as the sun came up, Emeka walked out of his front door. He was wearing clean clothes. He had a small bag packed. He locked his door, and without looking at anyone, he walked to the compound gate, opened it, and walked out. He did not look back. The compound was still. Everyone had heard the sounds in the night. Everyone suspected what had happened. Adana was gone. And now Emeka was gone too. The neighbors slowly came out of their houses, gathering in the yard, speaking in hushed whispers. Their eyes kept going to the backyard, to the patch of freshly dug earth behind number 4. Adana was gone, vanished, but she was not far. Everyone knew where she was. She was in the ground. And her husband, the friendly man who sold plumbing parts, had put her there. The quiet had finally come to number 4. It was the quiet of the grave. But the story was not over. The vanishing of Adana was just the beginning. The exposure of Emeka's darkest secret was still buried, waiting in the silence. The sun was already hot. In Port Harcourt, the heat wakes up before the people. It pressed down on the small compound, making the air thick and heavy. The group of neighbors stood in the yard, a safe distance from number 4, their voices low and urgent. Papa Chitty had his phone in his hand, his thumb hovering over the numbers to call the police. Mama Nkechi kept twisting the edge of her wrapper, her eyes fixed on the patch of disturbed soil in the backyard. Everyone knew what lay beneath it. They could almost feel it. "Press the number, Papa Chitty," a young man urged, "before he runs too far." "We need to be sure," Papa Chitty said, but his voice was weak. He was an old man. He had never seen anything like this. Suddenly, the compound gate scraped open. Everyone fell silent, their heads turned in unison, their hearts stopping for a beat. It was Emeka. He walked in, carrying the same small bag he had left with. He looked tired. His face was drawn and his eyes were red, as if he had not slept. He saw the crowd of neighbors staring at him, their faces a mixture of fear and accusation. He stopped, a look of confusion on his face. "Papa Chidi, Mama Nkechi, is everything all right? Why is everyone standing outside like this?" No one answered. They just stared. This was not supposed to happen. A man who had just buried his wife in the backyard was not supposed to come back for breakfast. It did not make sense. Emeka's face changed from confusion to alarm. He dropped his bag and rushed towards them. "Is it Adana? Have you seen her? Did she come back?" The question was so unexpected, so full of what sounded like real panic that the neighbors were stunned into silence. Mama Nkechi was the first to find her voice. "Emeka," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "What are you talking about? You know where Adana is. She is there. We heard you last night." She pointed a shaking finger towards the backyard. "Emeka," followed her finger, his eyes widening. He looked at the fresh patch of dirt and then back at their faces. For a moment, he looked genuinely lost. Then a look of dawning horror followed by anger spread across his face. "What? What are you saying?" he shouted, his voice cracking. You think I put her there? You think I killed my wife?" He took a step back, shaking his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "So, this is it. This is what you all think of me." He put his face in his hands. His shoulders started to shake. It looked like he was crying. "I have been traveling all night. All night. I went to her village near Owerri. I told you she went to see her sick mother, but when I got there this morning, they said they haven't seen her. Her mother is not sick. Adana never arrived. I was so worried, I turned my car straight back around. I was coming here to go to the police, to report my wife missing, and I come home to this? To my own neighbors accusing me of being a murderer?" His performance was perfect. He looked like a man in pain, a man who was scared for his wife, a man who was being wrongly accused by suspicious neighbors. Some of the people in the crowd started to look unsure. They looked at each other, their certainty wavering. They had heard the beatings for years. They had heard the digging. But here was Emeka, weeping in the middle of the yard, begging them to believe him. Papa Chidi looked at the freshly dug earth, then back at Emeka's tear-streaked face. He was confused. "Emeka," he said, slowly and carefully, "what about the noise last night? The digging? We all heard it." Emeka wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. His voice was thick with sadness. "My dog," he said. "It was my dog, Bruno. He was sick for 2 days. He died yesterday evening. I didn't want to just throw him outside. He was a good dog. I buried him. Is that a crime now to bury a family pet? A dog? It was a plausible story. It explained the digging. It might even explain some of the smell they had noticed before. The neighbors looked at each other again. Had they made a terrible mistake? I don't believe you, Mama Nkechi said suddenly. She was not convinced. The sounds of the beatings, the scream they heard days ago, that was not because of a dog. Where is Adana? Emeka's face hardened. He looked directly at Mama Nkechi. I don't know, and the fact that you think I do? He shook his head, then straightened up, his voice becoming strong and decisive. Fine. You want to know what happened? You all want to be the police? Let's call the real police. Let them come here. Let them search my house. Let them dig up my whole backyard. I have nothing to hide. My only crime is that I am worried sick about my missing wife. He was the one who said it. He challenged them to call the police. This changed everything. An innocent man would do that. A guilty man would not. Papa Chitty slowly lowered his phone. The confidence of the crowd was gone, replaced by a cloud of doubt and confusion. 2 hours later, a rickety police truck pulled into the compound. 2 officers came out. One was old and fat with a bored look on his face. The other was young, tall and thin with sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to notice everything. His name tag read Officer Kazim. They listened to both sides of the story. Papa Chitty, speaking for the neighbors, told them about the years of abuse, the sounds they heard, the scream, the smell, and the digging in the night. He spoke with conviction, but he could feel the story sounding weaker now, more like gossip than evidence. Then, Officer Kazim and his partner took Emeka aside. They spoke to him in the privacy of his flat. The neighbors watched from their windows. Through the open door, they could see Emeka talking, gesturing with his hands, his face a mask of earnest concern. He was telling them his story. Adana had packed a bag and left after an argument. He thought she had gone to her village. He went after her to apologize and bring her back, but she was not there. Now he was terrified something had happened to her. When the officers came out, the older one looked impatient. It was a hot day, and this looked like a simple domestic dispute, a waste of his time. But Officer Kazim's face was thoughtful. He walked over to Papa Chitty. "You are sure about what you heard?" Kazim asked quietly. "We are sure," Papa Chitty said, "all of us. He dug a hole last night and buried something." Kazim looked over at Emeka, who stood by his door watching them, his arms crossed. He looked like a victim. Then Kazim looked at the ground. "Okay," he said, "let's dig." The older officer sighed loudly, but Kazim ignored him. He instructed Emeka to bring 2 shovels from his backyard shed. A small crowd of onlookers, neighbors from other compounds, had gathered by the gate, drawn by the sight of the police truck. The entire compound held its breath. This was the moment of truth. 2 young men from the compound volunteered to dig. The sun beat down on their backs as they sunk their shovels into the soft, dark earth. Emeka stood nearby, watching, his face set like stone. He looked like a man waiting for his name to be cleared. Mama Nkechi stood by her door, her heart pounding. She prayed they would find something. She prayed they would find justice for the silent, sad woman who had lived in number 4. The shovels hit the dirt. Thump, scrape, thump, scrape. The pile of dug-up earth grew larger. The hole got deeper. 1 foot, 2 feet. The smell of damp soil filled the air. There was no other smell, no smell of decay. 3 feet deep. The men were sweating now, their shirts soaked through. Still nothing. The neighbors started to murmur amongst themselves. The confidence they had felt in the morning was completely gone. Now, they just felt a growing sense of dread. What if they were wrong?